Welcome back to the first of a two-part series on Switzerland, a country we've been to so many times in the past, but never seem to run out of new things to do and new places to discover. Zurich is one of Switzerland's main transport hubs, and that means you can get to pretty much any part of the country by train, in more or less a couple of hours at most. Catching a train in Zurich's historic Hauptbahnhof is easier than in any other railway station in Europe I've seen. Clean and orderly, and with trains always on time, it's like a microcosm of Swiss society. A popular day trip from Zurich is to Lucerne, in the central part of Switzerland, a scenic journey by train that takes just under an hour with no transfers to slow you down. Nestled around Lake Lucerne and at the foot of the Swiss Alps, Lucerne has captivated travelers with her natural beauty ever since. But, I must admit, less so in this kind of weather. It's a pity that the sky is gray and there's a light drizzle, because when the sky is clear and when the sun is out, the light in Lucerne is just magnificent. Incidentally, that's where the name Lucerne comes from the word for light, luz or luce, luz. Or more precisely, lucerna, Latin for lantern, which always seems to illuminate the city from above. Maybe not on this day, but usually, like the last two times we were here. Now this is what Lucerne looks like when a lantern in the sky shines through the clouds. But even when gray, Lucerne still charms its way. The view of both sides of the River Royce is amazing, especially from the wooden chapel bridge, the oldest covered bridge in the entire world. You can hardly tell that an accidental fire burned it down in 1993 because it's been reconstructed so faithfully. Testament indeed of that legendary Swiss obsession with precision craftsmanship and build quality. Most of Lucerne's famous landmarks are best viewed from the chapel bridge, so take your time to take in the iconic scenery, with the centuries-old civic buildings on the quayside, the medieval octagonal water tower, and the Baroque Jesuit Catholic Church with its twin onion dome towers. Switzerland was an important center of the Protestant Reformation, but Lucerne stayed predominantly Catholic, and later would even provide a pope with his Swiss Guard, the Vatican's military. Here at another famous Lucerne landmark, the Lion Monument, a regiment of Swiss Guards are honored for their bravery. The Lion Monument is more than just a striking work of art. It's a symbol of the bravery and loyalty of Swiss soldiers, Swiss mercenaries, or as we know them today, the Swiss Guard. Now, the men who were honored here died protecting the King of France, a foreign king, King Louis XVI, during the French Revolution. Today, we know the Swiss Guard for their loyalty and for protecting the Pope. The mortally wounded lion sculpted by Bertel Thorvaldsen in 1820 captures the moment before death. The author Mark Twain even called it the most mournful and moving piece of stone in the world. The agony on the lion's face is so real, even I have to agree. Although the act of bravery took place on foreign soil and in the service of a foreign monarch, the Swiss have made it a symbol of their own. Indeed, Switzerland wouldn't be what it is today without defending its neutrality so courageously. Thanks to a neutral foreign policy since 1815 and the natural barriers posed by the Alps, Lucerne, like most Swiss cities, was never invaded or bombed in the last world wars, leaving their historic town center so well preserved and such a joy to explore. Swiss neutrality, of course, only applies to any war with its restless neighbors, because when it comes to food, the cuisines of France, Italy, Germany, and Austria on its borders have all left their mark on Switzerland. Hotel Schiff is one of the best traditional restaurants in town. In good weather, locals fight for a table overlooking the Royce River, though fur coats and blankets are available to those who don't mind braving the chill al fresco. To keep warm, I'm having a Lucerne specialty,
Sugary pastelli.
diced veal with champignon, mushrooms, and peas, cooked in saffron and served in a rich cognac and mushroom sauce. The Swiss love veal, but you'll find veal served in most restaurants across the border in France, Italy, Austria, and Germany as well. When possible, Lucerne is best enjoyed outdoors, but good food and a cozy corner, the view of nature is how the Swiss cope with a cold and dark winter. Another great side trip from Zurich is Basel, where Switzerland borders France and Germany. The city along the Rhine is better known for attracting businessmen than it is for tourists. Apart from the lucrative pharmaceutical and chemical industries, the city hosts Baselworld, the largest watch exhibition there is. For a week, tens of thousands descend on the city from all over the world to see the latest watch models on display at the sprawling Messe, an architectural landmark designed by the Pritzker Prize-winning firm Herzog and de Meuron. The exhibition is open to the public, so if viewing million-dollar watches and over-the-top booths is your idea of a holiday, then yes, it's worth a visit. The only other time of year Basel gets crowded is during Art Basel, the equivalent of the annual watch fair for art professionals and collectors. In between Baselworld and Art Basel, the city is practically yours to explore, which is great because there's actually so much to see and do in one of Switzerland's most underrated cities. Basel is the third richest city after Zurich and Geneva, and that means a lot of funds for public recreation. Art lovers will go nuts with a vast amount of museums and art installations in the city. And with its wealth, the city can afford to maintain and reconstruct its many medieval landmarks, making Basel one of the best preserved historic centers in Europe. To get to the old town or Altstadt from the city center, you need to cross the medieval Mittlere Brücke, or Middle Rhine Bridge. The 800-year-old stone bridge is one of the oldest bridges built over the Rhine, and also a symbol of Basel. Following the cobblestone streets overlooking the river takes you back to the Middle Ages, when Basel was a prince-bishopric under the Holy Roman Empire, the rulers who built the towering Basler Münster, the Cathedral of Basel, in the 11th century. With its distinctive red sandstone walls, painted tile roof and twin towers, the cathedral on the banks of the Rhine is truly a sight to behold. Another historic gem worth visiting is the Rathaus, Basel's 500-year-old town hall on Marktplatz. It's still the seat of the city council after all these centuries. The square where it stands is one of the busiest and most colorful in the city, especially on weekdays when a farmer's market occupies a space. It's a fantastic place to enjoy the produce sourced from farms all over Switzerland. Some of what's sold at the market make it to one of Basel's oldest and most famous dining establishments, the
Bistro restaurant Schlüsselzunft, just a few meters away.
Roughly translated,
Schlüsselzunft
means house of the key. In the olden days, there were no house numbers. So when a powerful guild in Basel bought the property in the 14th century, they gave it the name. When the reign of Catholic bishops ended in Basel, the guilds filled the vacuum. They're no longer as influential today, but they still exist. They still own the house and still come around.
So it's a restaurant, but you're saying the guild still meets here?
Yes, we have twice a year a big reunion of the guild. It is Ash Wednesday is the highest
really?
day of the guild, and on that day it's the whole building is exclusively for the
guild.
Yes.
Many parts of the house and pieces of furniture are as they were during the days of the guild. Even the portraits and coat of arms of prominent members adorn the halls. It's like having a museum and a restaurant at the same time.
Of course, if I were a tourist, if I were a visitor, I'd come here for the history, but I'm sure for the food as well.
I hope so, yes.
Tell me about the cuisine that you serve here.
Andreas, our chef, makes a modern way of traditional cuisine. So it has, of course, like always in Switzerland, has a French influence, it has a bit Mediterranean influence, and we have a Swiss influence. And here we do a bit of mixture of everything.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you don't just come here for the local history, although there's so much of it in this building. You also come here for the local cuisine, and the chef has prepared one of his specialties, salmon, which is historically important for Basel. I'll tell you a bit about that later on. Now, this dish is paired with some really fantastic Swiss wine. Let's try it.
Perfect so far. The salmon with a macadamia crust, beans, and maple cream is wonderful, and especially the wine. Beautiful white from the Valais region in Switzerland.
Now, let me tell you about that story. Today, salmon is considered a prime ingredient, somewhat of a luxury for most people. But back in the old days, at least in Basel, in Switzerland, salmon was considered working class food. So much so that one of the first laws passed in Basel, or in Switzerland, was to limit the amount of salmon families would eat in a week. It was considered cruel to have too much salmon. Unbelievable, right?
Next is Swiss beef with white truffles and a port gravy. Yes, the Swiss are loyal to their own, and why not? Cows from the Swiss Alps feed on the best grass and drink the best water on the planet, and are allowed to roam free. And you taste that. Too bad there's not enough beef to export, so we can only enjoy it here. There's only one way to describe Swiss cuisine: rich, just like the country itself. But the Alpine nation is rich in so many other ways as well. In the quality of life you come across in cities like Basel and Zurich, and the beauty of the natural landscape in places like Lucerne. In the second part of our series on Switzerland, we travel to the French-speaking part of the country, where the most scenic views, the best vineyards, and the most sophisticated cities on Lake Geneva are found. More of Switzerland's food, wine, history, and scenery next week. And that's all for this episode of Executive Class in Switzerland. I'm David Celdran. Thanks for watching.